partidei. Delgado acolo este, va fi corner, dragi ascultători.
Though my love is rare, though my love is pure, I'm like a bird. I'll always fly away. Welcome back to Val Verde Broadcasting. I'm Duncan Casey, and I am here in the glorious confines of Val Verde HQ with Richard Jackson.
Hola.
Hola, welcome back. Yes, fantastic. Here we are. Today we are diving headfirst, balls deep, into Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds. Apt, in fact, because it was 10 years ago that it came out, which is crazy to think.
Is it really?
10 years, yeah, 2009 that came out.
Fucking Christ.
I know.
God. Feel old yet? Top 10 reasons. Some clickbait for you.
Yeah. So, yeah, a very interesting film, actually, and one that I enjoyed when I first saw it and have come to enjoy even more, actually, as the time's gone on. I think once the veneer of hype was scrubbed from it, I came to enjoy it even more. I think just as a sort of passing fancy. It's an utterly bonkers film in how it works out.
Yes. Very much that alternative history kind of route, which I didn't expect.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of on a knife set. We'll get into that.
We'll get into all that. But yeah, essentially set in World War II, revolves around a plot to take down the core 4 of the Third Reich. Is it 4 or 3? I can't remember. Hitler, Goebbels, Goering, and someone else.
Himmler.
I
can't remember. Anyway.
Himmler. Yeah, and but obviously with a huge. It's one of those Tarantino things that sort of seems to have not go very far and yet go quite far. I don't know. I'll explain that a bit more in a minute. But yeah. How did you sort of come to?
I went to see it in the cinema when it came out.
Did you?
Yeah, in the previous episodes we talked about how I took my now ex-girlfriend, to Hot Fuzz on Valentine's Day instead of going out, which we did do later. This was, I think, this is her one. She wanted to go see this in the cinema. So did I. So we went down the Arts Pitch House and watched it. No. She's a big Tarantino fan, more so than me. I mean, I think he's great, but I don't get the hype like other people do. But yeah, this is probably my favourite Tarantino movie.
Okay, interesting.
I'm someone who doesn't, I think there's a weird kind of hero. People worship Tarantino the way he worships strange women's feet. So I don't really. It's people who sort of fucking go about Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs are the best films ever made, and it's like they're good, but just wind your neck in a bit. This personally is my favourite one of his films. I just like how it embraces the kind of slightly gonzo B-moviness of it. It's kind of like Force 10 from Navarone, not Guns from Navarone, mind, Force 10 from Navarone.
Right.
The original Inglourious Basterds, and
Where Eagles Dare a bit, maybe.
Yeah, When Eagles Dare, Dirty Dozen, it's all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember, but this was in, because the dude runs his mouth off, and he's one of the examples of a director who more often than not gets what he wants. And he wanted like Adam Sandler for this. He wanted Schwarzenegger. He wanted Stallone. Yeah. So I would have loved to have seen the fucking Gonzo casting. I'd love to see a fucking cast like that in a Tarantino film.
Well, because he obviously got Willis and stuff, so he was in that. But I think for me, so what's quite interesting, I obviously now with the fullness of 10 years or a decade hence,
that's doing my head in.
it marked a kind of a sea change for Tarantino in terms of it was kind of a period piece. I mean, like there were period elements in his other films, but this was really the first one where it was set in a completely different time period, and it has elements of the Western about it, which obviously he's then gone into the Western genre big time, and that's kind of the pool he's in at the moment. So it was sort of like phase 2 of Tarantino in a way, or perhaps phase 3, I think. So it's interesting how now obviously with what's the new one? I forget what it's called now. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yes,
right?
I think so, I believe so, yeah. This is what I mean, I don't even really follow his films particularly.
No.
When they come out and,
I would say he's on balance he's a hit for me, but it's odd. I mean, not to sound like a contrarian, but it's usually the films that people praise him for are the ones I think are still good, but they're my least favourite of his. It's Jackie Brown's Inglourious Basterds. And Django as well, I thought was quite
good. Like Django,
yeah, I think those are probably for me some of my favourite of his. Yeah, I watched Reservoir Dogs again recently, and I do like it, but it's a very simple tale, but it's a bit overwrought.
It is,
you know.
If you watch, I think it's a Ringo Lam film called City on Fire.
Right. Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Tarantino's thing, kind of really since Pulp Fiction, I think Reservoir Dogs is the most straight down the line, and Django's in there as well, but they're all kind of these vignettes, and this is very much a series of stacked vignettes, very strongly bookended from end to end. You know, the thing happens,
Just say
title
chapters.
cards and stuff. Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's all these kind of like tensely wound kind of dialogue scenes and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's actually really quite, in certain things, it's quite low key. Is scenes where it's just a bunch of people standing around in the woods, or it's a bunch of people standing around in an office, and he thrives on good dialogue and acting.
There's a 40-minute scene, set piece, if you like, that takes place in a cellar bar.
Yeah,
and that goes on for 40 minutes.
Scene.
Yeah, I know, and it's full of tension, and it does not feel like 40 minutes long.
It's like the final scene between Christoph Waltz and Leonardo DiCaprio in Django.
Yeah,
it's a similar thing. It's just this and it racks up the tension up and up.
The opening scene of Inglourious Basterds is I would say a masterclass in tension building, and not only that, it's almost like, because you're reading a lot of it, it's like you're reading off of Tarantino's script, and it's like, but obviously with Waltz's incredible interpretation of this character, and it's like you say, it's just that constant ratcheting up, and you see Monsieur Lapedite, who's like sat there, and that is a very underrated performance as well. That poor guy who is just literally, and that bit where he gets him to point out with his pipe, and it's like, it's the most heartbreaking, painful thing you've ever seen a human being do.
Awful.
And it's just like, because you get carried away with Waltz, you know, you get bound up in his whole thing, and it's like, and you know he's evil and all that, but you sort of still get, it's that, again, that sort of Faustian, you're kind of going with it, because it's like, you know, he's charming and he's all this sort of stuff. And
this is the first thing I've seen him in, and I guess it's one of his first big Hollywood roles to kind of introduce him to that, and I just thought he was hypnotic. Like the fucking scene where he's eating strudel, and it's just like, this is the most evil person in the whole world.
And he gets the little raisin, which is, you know, again, allegoric of his character. You know, it's like everything.
The point is, you know, nothing escapes from him apart from her. Yeah, and she knows that, and she's watching him pick out. It's just like,
well, again, another amazing reactive performance when he leaves the room, and she's like, you see all that tension, and it's like, really he knows. I mean, look, this is the thing about Tarantino. Like, his choices you may not like, and I don't like some of them, but he knows what he's doing. He knows what he wants, and he gets it. Generally speaking, now things like I think Django, and it's not just me, but there's that bit where he jumps the shark, where it's like he shows up, and it's at that point it's like he gets really caught, and it goes on. He's like,
I forgot that.
Australian. It's like
It's so awful, and then he gets blown up.
I can kind of say this stuff now, because I'm never going to get to work with him, because isn't this his last film? So it's so I can be rude about it.
There you go. But, if someone's retiring or dead, Duncan's your man.
So I do think he shows. It's funny because you sort of go like, well, that smacks of ill discipline, and yet he does seem to like people level that criticism at Inglourious Basterds. I actually think it is a film that is generally quite. I don't think it outstays its welcome. Some people do, and I understand why, but I don't. I actually think those scenes need to be like that.
As I say it all the time, I'm not one for overlong films unnecessarily. This, to me, does not. Yeah. I'm absolutely fine. I mean, Hateful Eight, I felt outside its welcome. I wasn't particularly as on board with that. I think, and then there was a year of the two Kurt Russell westerns, and that Hateful Eight was not the one I was on board with.
No, I haven't finished Hateful Eight. I did start watching it, and I had to switch it off, and I don't feel the need to go back to it. And I do think it's almost like he was exhausted on the western genre already.
Well, I think he's found his niche now, hasn't he? And he's able, because before he did kind of like straight crime narrative, but then he got himself to a position like from Kill Bill onwards to just do these absurd, insane kind of cartoon things. And there's supposedly some kind of dual universe in Tarantino, in that there's the universe and then there's the fiction that's from that universe.
Which, again, I mean, this is again marks a sea change for him, because he's talking about a historic period, and it's historically accurate right up until, obviously. Yeah. Now that brings up one of the major criticisms of this film, which is that I think, you know, that everyone's entitled to their opinion. One of the things that they, that's sensitive about it is the fact that it's a sort of white guy hero complex in that he's allowing the Jews to get revenge on.
Yeah, sure. It's kind of a fantasy to enable something from outside of because it's not his culture, really.
Right, yeah. So, which I make no comment on.
The comedy in it and the cartoonishness of it skirts a fine line because you're essentially talking about the Holocaust, and there's and the first scene is these people being exterminated, and then it's kind of funny, and I think it manages it well enough, and I think it kind of has its cake and eat it in that it ends with I think Eli Roth machine gunning Hitler in the face.
Yeah. Big time.
When I watched that, when I was in the cinema,
while there's a burning Jewish woman in the background, you know what I mean, laughing because she's killing all the...
Yeah, right, and that as a ghost, she's dead, so she appears as a ghost through the media cinema.
Well, through the mist as well, because the projector goes through the mist.
Well, I mean,
cinema
dealing with this sensitive topic, it has its cake and eats it by going a certain way. And I was watching it in the cinema going like, is this supposed to have taken place in history or is this an alternative history? This is machine gunning Hitler in the face. It's like, okay, it's an alternative history.
Yeah.
Fundamentally as well, there something working in this is kind of, is Tarantino showing off his knowledge of film, and Kill Bill was essentially his Hong Kong and Japanese cinema and a few other things. And this one, and I reference German cinema quite a bit because it's something I'm into, and there is very important, as I've said many times before, like the German films of the Weimar period were very important to early cinema, hugely influential, and Nazism stopped that.
Right.
Because it was decadent and grotesque, and a lot of the directors were gay and Jewish and whatever.
Right.
And everything became your Triumph of the Will, Leni Riefenstahl type stuff, and Daniel Bruhl's character is the star of one such film. He's kind of like the German Audie Murphy essentially. So it's the actual soldier playing a soldier in a film.
Well, there's a lot of not to derail what you're saying, but just to add to it, there's a lot of, and we've talked about this before, where there are films where you're not sure if you're watching a film or if you're watching real events that are supposed to be taking place. Daniel Bruhl's character is a classic example, Frederick Toller. Right, where you're like, did he do that, or is that just a made-up load of propaganda? You don't know, and it's kind of like, because there's never any proof or evidence.
And Goebbels is a character in your film, and Goebbels was, as awful as it is, Goebbels was responsible for an awful lot of film. Yeah, and in the mechanism of the state in Nazi Germany, because the films of Weimar period are swept away, and a lot of these directors fled to Hollywood, and that's why we ended up with that. And this is Tarantino looking at that period of cinema and sort of doing his take on that sea change, because he's got an encyclopedic knowledge of film, it's very clear, and women's shoes. But
I heard a criticism, someone said that the point at which the film lost them was, and they thought that it was Tarantino spoon feeding them, which I don't agree with, is where, when she goes to the restaurant just before the strudel stuff, and she meets Goebbels and his Italian translator, well, it was a French translator, but I think she's Italian, isn't she? And there's that shot of him just fucking her from behind, and they were like, "Oh, come on, we were all thinking it." It's like, no, the point is he's showing what she's thinking, what Shoshalad's thinking, like that she's thinking that, and it's also that Germany is fucking Italy by way of France. It's like there's all sorts of, that's not a throwaway thing that he's doing to spoon feed you a joke. It's like we're in the mind of her as well. That's the point. It's not that we're not showing it for the audience, but you know what I mean. It's like, so the Goebbels stuff. I love it as well. When Goebbels goes to shake his hand, it's sort of this limp hand comes up, and it's like awkward. Like
he looks freakishly like Goebbels. As well. It's really weird.
That's just the Hitler guy. Who, bless him. I mean, anyone who has to play Hitler, I really feel for it a lot. I did a one of these what was it, Nazi megastructures things where you do they always have like shots of stuff that went on and
what, you like Channel 5 type?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was for History Channel.
You did one?
Yeah, I was in one. It's like I played a famous Nazi pilot. Or looked
I know that.
Yeah. It was I can't remember the guy's name now, but he was a sort of famous part.
Sit and watch the History Channel till that comes on.
Yeah, I had to speak German, and I had a language coach there who I didn't need, but no, I didn't. No, she was wonderful. She was lovely. I only say that so that they also did some stuff for that series with the Hitler guy, and he wasn't there, but some of the guys there were saying how he had to do it, and he had to keep his moustache. Do you know what I mean? Because bear in mind, you've got to grow that moustache and then walk around with it all the time, and the haircut. I guess you don't have to have it all slicked side, but it's like
still not a good look.
It's not a good look, man. Like,
and Cesar Romero,
he's German.
just like,
yeah. I mean, I just was like, so the guy in Inglourious Basterds does an incredible job. Do you know what I mean? Because what Tarantino's done brilliantly with all these characters, he's still given them a human side, like Hitler in it. There's a moment in it where the first survivor we see of the Bastards has been sent to see him, and we're not sure how these things are taking place in what context, time frame. And Hitler's ranting because that's what Hitler does. But as soon as he's like nine, all that stuff, and the guy says he's on this little intercom. He's like, "Would you like me to send in?" Like the guy from he's like, "Danke, Klaus." He's like,
it is a ridiculously comedy Hitler.
But it sort of has that element of like he's a buffoon in a lot of ways, and it's like it's almost like he's a horrific, horrible, nasty piece of shit, obviously. But there's a sort of rather than just portray him as a sort of blanket it's like he's still a human being. I mean, God knows with the soul of a
the worst human being,
exactly.
Still a human being.
But you know what I mean. And so it's kind of like, and I like the way he's just a sort of pathetic sponge of bullets at the end, where it's just like all over. But so in terms of casting, then, since we're talking about that, we've also got Michael Fassbender. Now, this is the first time I was introduced to Fassbender. I think I know he's in 300. But
me too. Yeah. Other stuff. First thing I saw him in, and first thing I saw Christopher Watson. Of course, Fassbender is like British, Irish, German. Yeah. So he just switches between, because quite a lot of easy to forget. Rather a lot of this film is in French, German, and Italian.
It's something like 70%, I think, is subtitled. Yeah.
And like this, you can tell. I speak. German's one of the languages I do have a bit of a handle on. I speak a little bit of German.
Yeah, so
and, I'm not going to pretend that I follow subtitles or anything like that. But you can just see his performance in German is so emphatic. You can just see it, like in his face and his mannerism stuff. He's just amazing. And seeing him for the first time, I was just like, this is a fucking amazing performance. Like Jesus Christ, it's incredible.
Because you sort of go, Waltz is incredible because he's not only bilingual, he's trilingual. I don't know. He's got like Italian, German, French, and English, so 4 going on. And he switches between the two seamlessly. But because he's German, somehow he doesn't get the kudos. Like that, Fassbender seems to do it in a really don't know. Like I mean, it's. But yeah, you're right. It's incredible.
I think Americans and British are the same in that we're just awful because we just don't learn any languages.
But there's but there's a really great point in it, isn't there? In the basement when they're like your accent's strange, and that is another wonderful performance by the guy who plays what's his name, the one who's had the son Maximilian, and they're celebrating his birth. That's why it all kicks off in the bar. And he's blonde hair guy. He showed up in Homeland, I think, or something as well. But he's a really great actor. But he has that. He's like your accent, and he plays drunk really well. It's like, where are you from? And he's like. And he can fob him off, but then there's that guy, the Sturmbannführer who's in the background. You're right. He nails that so well, and of course, we're supposed to believe that he's perfect apart from the 3.
That fucks.
High Glazer, and there's that bit where you can tell, he knows, they know he knows, and he goes like, "Eine tausende Jahre Reich," or whatever, and he's like, it's toasting to 1,000-year German Reich, and Fassbender goes, "1,000 Jahre Reich!" And he just like yells it, because like, "Can you fuck off, please?" And
it's great because you just watch, that's going south.
I know.
And it's
the shot of the 3 and his face in the background. He's like,
pure dialogue. Apart from that, because it's about how you watch it's this scene of combat between 2 people mentally. Yeah. It's one of the kind of standout sort of vignettes in the film. Brad Pitt is great. Brad Pitt is essentially a comedy character. Yeah. And he's so good. It's like the whole.
This is what started the whole. That with Brad Pitt. The whole
first best Italian, second best Italian.
Oh, blood him. What's the thing? That I can't abide. No, he is, but again. It speaks to that. It's not real, so. You can get away with these slightly cartoonish characters, what was I going to say about that? There's a big thing in it about how cinema. This is what film literally wins the war. Yeah, you know what I mean. It's the battle of film. Yeah,
it's very much. I mean, all of Tarantino's films are films about films, but this one really explicitly is about the mechanism of film. It's about. I mean, this isn't really so much about the creation of film. This is a film about the exhibition of film.
Yeah.
Which is something you see less of these days. Like quite a lot of the time is about the means of production and showing how things are made and stuff like that. And I've said for a long time, that's what Singing in the Rain is really. It's about exposing the means of production and stuff. And this is about exhibition, and it's because it's about a screening of our film, Operation Kino. Right?
Yeah.
And it's about.
The operation is about cinema. That's the first initial thing to take down the Third Reich. But then there's also the fact that they literally burn the cinema down using nitrate film, which you have that little thing from Samuel L. Jackson, that little voiceover from Samuel L. Jackson talking about film. It's like, now back in the day, and it shows that old like London bus. It's like, here, you can't take that on it. It's like, why not, cobblers? it's like. There's filming, eh? There's filming. Yeah, that's right. It's flammable, mate. Like whatever. Like, clicker. There's sort of like weirdly cartoonish sort of London accent. But yeah, I just think it's, and then that's the sort of first sign as well when you're jumping out and looking at old. I mean, that's stock footage of a educational thing about why you can't take film on buses.
That's a lot of this is Tarantino showing off, and that in particular is kind of like, here's a bit from an educational film or a safety film that I've seen.
But it adds weight to what it adds verisimilitude, I suppose, to what's going on in the film, and yet it ends in this ludicrous thing of the bear Jew shooting
things. Yes, indeed, yeah. The Matinee, Joe Dante's Matinee, and then the 80s version of The Blob have kind of things where exhibitions of films go wrong.
Right.
And this is very much that. And again, it's about the exhibition of film and how that ends the war and the kind of iconography within that. And like you say, and then, she uses the medium of film to project herself as a ghost, knowing she's going to die, so that she's the last thing they see and everything. I mean, it's a film that his films are always films about films, even Reservoir Dogs, even in a very subtle way. And then it becomes, like, by the time you get to Kill Bill, it's just gone nuts. But like, this one in particular is very much about that, and it's about European film, because really it's about a kind of Franco Nero type situation. And it's about kind of Italian. It's about Italian and German films primarily, but there's an element of kind of British, and it's about Europe, and it's about a certain place in time, and it just ticks off all that stuff, because he is showing off. This is a man showing off, and why not? He knows what he's, he fucking knows his stuff. I would never ever take that away from him. I think he's a bit of an arse sometimes, but
Well, but he's it's like what do they say about U2? It's like you hate U2, but they still bring out those albums, and you're like, fucking U2, like, just because they make catchy songs whether you like them or not, and it's like, I think with Tarantino, there's an alchemy to his stuff that I know it's self-indulgent at times, but I still like watching it. Not all of them, like the Kill Bill films, my dad loves those films. I'm not as fond of them. I don't know why. It's maybe just.
I like them. I like them. Yeah. I like them as a big fun cartoon thing, particularly the first one.
Right.
I like them both. I do. I like this more. I think they work really well. I went to see both those opening night when they came out, because that was a big exciting thing that was happening. And as a kind of crazy festival of gore and stuff and fun and funny. But I just like this more. It's one of these things, I think the mood of it allows me to sort of just sink into it. And watch it. I think that latter day Tarantino is very much like that.
It's very immersive,
Yeah, you just kind of melt into it.
And it's character driven largely. I mean, it has that those overarching themes, but there's that great sort of character driven stuff in it that's... Yeah, I mean, it's... There's layers to unpack and look at, and what's nice, again, you see, the thing I suppose is when a Tarantino film comes out, it's a Tarantino film, so it has all that baggage really that comes with that, and I feel like now this film really has been stripped of that, and it's interesting to look at it 10 years hence, because you kind of go like back when this came out 10 years before would have been 99, and you were still in that kind of, what was that have been like, post Pulp Fiction Jackie Brown type?
Yeah. So after that, and then you've got like, the big events really, The Matrix and The Phantom Menace around there. They kind of dominated that year.
So to come out with a sort of Elseworlds World War II film, and as well, like, I mean, credit to the studios or whatever who let him do it, because he's like, like, I'm going to make this and everyone's going to speak the language that they're supposed to be speaking. There's no
compromise.
It's not Valkyrie or whatever. There's going to be everyone's going to be speaking that. And he said as well, I saw in an interview with him, he was talking about it. He was saying about when he was looking for Landa, and he said it was so close to the wire. He was literally going, if I can't find the actor to do this, forget it. I'll just sell the script as a speculative thing. He goes, I won't do it unless I can find that character, because that's the key to this. If I can't, and he said it was. I think he had till it was like a Monday morning or something when he started looking for, or when he was doing a round of casting. And he said if by Friday he knew by Friday he was going to have to commit to doing it. Up until that point, he could cancel it and he'd just lose his own money. And he said, I think he got to like Thursday or whatever, and it was like, that's when Waltz walked in, and he was like, yeah, that's it.
I mean,
you know,
he is amazing in this.
Yeah.
Just as a multilingualist, but as a performer, because every performance in every fucking language. Like because it's another thing, it's about kind of mental combat, essentially, mental jousting. And when they pretend to be Italian and then he just speaks fluent Italian to them, it's just like...
Yeah, there is no getting away. I mean, that's the thing with him. I mean, that character, so yeah, he's a cat, essentially. He plays with prey. And he loves it.
And he's not even particularly bothered about the ideology. He just likes the game.
He says at the end, doesn't he? He says like, he goes, because I know at the start he says he's fond of the moniker he's been given, which is the Jew hunter. But then at the end, when he's like, he goes, I'm a good detective. He goes, I'm a detective. I'm a very good detective. And he goes, so naturally I work for the Nazis because, but he doesn't give a shit. Yeah, no, it's just he's just good at that, and he'll do it for the highest bidder, essentially.
This awful, cruel man.
Yeah, sociopathy, really. It's but then it's like at the end,
the joy he takes in it all. It's just
because he shoots. Brad Pitt shoots the guy who's coming with him. He goes, "Have you lost your mind?" Like he gets annoyed about it. So he's a weird, like, he's just a total sociopath as far as it goes. But he's the whole kind of playing things, and then there's some really interesting absurdities about him, like, when he's like, may I smoke my pipe as well? And he takes out this fucking great...
huge. It's such a great gag.
Yeah.
It's a straight up gag.
Yeah.
The ridiculous comedy pipe that he pulls out. And from nowhere, from his jodhpurs, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Fucking...
I know, and it's this sort of crazy bit of levity in such a tense film. I mean, that's, we talk about that a lot with films as well, about like breaking up tension. That has to happen. Like Terminator 2, I mean, the first Terminator has elements of comedy in it because you have to have that in order to keep the tension...
Very few, though.
Feeling real. Very few, perfectly placed, precision placed bits, but it's like, that's got to happen, and it's there, it's totally there with this film, and it's yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know what it is about Nazis having absurdly large things, but like the guy drinking the stein of beer out of a boot, like the big glass boot and stuff like that. I'm sure you can buy those. Which I would buy, except a Nazi drink.
It's not a good look, is it?
No.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool. I love that Germans drink fucking great things of beer.
One of the great things about going to Berlin is just ordering a stein of beer. We could go to the German beer hall in Old Street. Give me some fucking... I want some money.
Oh, there's a beer fest in Peterborough. We should totally hit that shit up.
There's Cambridge every year as well.
No, not beer festival. We have that too. But there's an Oktoberfest, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, we have that here too. Oh. No, but the one in Peterborough is the biggest in the country. Did you know? No, second biggest in the country.
Yes, yeah.
Third is Cambridge, first is London. No one cares. Okay,
yeah. It's really good though.
We're going to go.
Have to come. So look, we're at the 28-minute mark. Let's wrap it up. I think this is definitely up there. It jostles perhaps with Jackie Brown for me in terms of my favourite Tarantino to watch. I'm not saying they're the best or anything like that, but just in terms of what I like to put on of his, it's definitely up there.
This is my favourite Tarantino film, I think.
Yeah. Fair play, yeah, I can get more with it. That's it. If you haven't seen it or you haven't watched it in a while, I definitely recommend checking it out. I'll put a link below to our Amazon affiliate account so that you can click through there if you haven't got it. Maybe you want to buy it. It's definitely worth a look. And don't be put off by the subtitles and stuff like that because it really does rattle.
Oh God, no, yeah. And we're live streaming this today. Today's whole shoot has been live streamed on Patreon. So if you donate more than $3 on Patreon, you can watch us working live, which includes eating vegetable samosas and having lunch. And that whole live stream is then put. That whole stream is then put on YouTube for you to watch at your own leisure if you're at work or whatever.
Yes.
So
yes.
There.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you so much for your patronage. Please, if you haven't already, click subscribe, hit like, all that good stuff. Check us out below, check out all our other videos. It really helps us, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks very much.
Support your 7th or 8th favourite YouTube channel by buying crap, tat, junk, hogwash and filth at redbubble.com/people/Val Verde Shop.